What's going on, guys? I have a deck profile to you today for a fun event I went to just over the weekend. It was a 3v3 at a place called Through the Decades game over in Louisville, Kentucky, where they had an unbelievable tournament. I believe there were about 20 teams, I want to say, maybe 20 teams sounds about right. And my team ended up getting third place. I personally went 7-0 with this deck list, and I don't think I'm breaking any new ground on this deck list, but shout out to Through the Decades. Shout out to my teammates Brandon Reiger and Julio Casablanca, aka Super Mario for you Texas players. He used to play down there epic cards and games with all those guys, and he's now local to me. And we did phenomenal. So, like I said, I went 7-0. I'll go through the list. I don't think anything here is going to be groundbreaking for what it is, but it was a lot of fun. It was very powerful. I played Blackwings. Boring, I know. Nothing special, nothing special, nothing new or unique. This was new to me, as I have never in my life played a Blackwing deck. In fact, at tournament level, I've never played a deck that can summon Dark Arm Dragon. I think the only thing I've played for the past year and a half was one event I played Diva Hero Beat. One event I played Gigavice, or a lot of events. I played Gigavice for like 6 months. I played Forgs from 2024 until the middle of 2025, and then I played GB a couple times too. Now, this is actually not pure Blackwings, as I'm sure you can see now. This is actually a hybrid build. And the only reason I wanted to play this was specifically because of Blizzard. And I guess Shura to a lesser extent. I just think Blizzard's a cool card. I think it's one of my favorite rares within the format. I really like this deck. I will continue playing this deck. I think my ratios here worked exceptionally well. This is a build that I guess I'll throw everything up on screen at once here. This is a build that was obviously on the Black Whirlwind. I know there's some builds that do more Blackwing heavy and then don't run Black Whirlwind, where they just run, I don't even know, like this and maybe one Collude or something like that. I know some builds are more Blackwing heavy and they throw like a Bora or three Colludes, sometimes multiple Blizzard. I think when I went through my testing, multiple Blizzard was just kind of not good, the best way I can put it. I just didn't have enough monster cards in the graveyard to make multiple Blizzard valuable. So I went with one Blizzard. At one point, I was on a main deck. What's it called? Bora. I used one Bora in the main, but it was kind of lackluster. I think Bora's cool just to be an additional summon for the Black Whirlwind. So just summon Shura, and then you search the Bora. Obviously, everyone knows and allows you to do a big follow-up play the following turn because now you have the Bora to search. But I don't know. It's also nice. Bora was nice too, just to be like a field flooding. So a lot of replays I watch because I don't play the game anymore, but a lot of replays that I watched were times where Bora's good because say your opponent goes Gazaris into double GBs or something, or if they have just Greffer send Necrogarna in some kind of value matchup. That board is just really nice to be that additional monster on the board to either one, empty their field or play through Necrogarna or something of that sort. Or just more cards to make Whirlwind proc or make Icarus attack live. This card was overwhelming for me. I have been on Gladiator Beast for so long that I just playing around Icarus almost became second nature whenever you see a Blackwing monster. It was never really that difficult. But when you're the one using Icarus attack, I really undervalued how unbelievable this card is once your opponent commits, two or more cards to the board. Even if this goes even in card advantage, I don't need to go +1, but if it goes even, it's still good. If I'm plussing off of it, like I attack into a deep prison or it goes into a bottomless or something, and then I use it on two other cards, it was so unbelievably good. And I did opt for the one deck, Debbie. I think this ratio is fine. I couldn't see myself doing more than 4 tribute traps between the tribute traps and the 3 Greffer and the Foolish Burial and the Plague Stack, it's very resource intensive. I don't think I would have been able to maneuver anything more than what I have here. And I would never trade the main deck Icarus for another main deck Devi. Devi is very good, don't get me wrong, but I just think the Icarus being able to consistently hit problem cards on the board is much better than Devi maybe hitting something in the hand. I ran one prison. In this list, I am at 40. I would not go over 40. I'm a player that does not like going over 40. If you're telling me that I want to hit a specific card ratio or have certain cards in my hand, Dark Grepher, Black Whirlwind, I don't see a reason to go over 40, even if it means having like a smaller trap lineup, which it made siding extremely difficult as a result, but that's okay. The one Mirror Force, this card was insane. So a lot of times I don't I need to say this carefully because I think I'm about to say something a little bit controversial, is that I don't think Mirror Force is a main deck card in every deck. We're at a point in Edison where players need to be very picky on what it is that they're running. And the idea of just running a card because it's good, I don't think that's a good enough reason. I think that's very dogmatic thinking, and you need to have reasons to run cards. Mirror Force is good because it goes wide, of course, but why is the one Mirror Force better than Double D Prison? I think in a lot of decks, you would value having Double D Prison over like a Mirror Force and a D Prison. The reason I think Mirror Force here specifically is good, though, there's not monsters that I want to hit, but there's fields that I want to hit. And it happens several times where you have Dark Grepher, send a Necro. Well, now they need to commit two monsters to out the Grepher. Everyone knows that if you're playing against a Grepher, you need to get this off the board. If you don't get this off the board, basically the turn it's summoned, its advantage grows to game. Like if Grepher's on the board for more than one turn, it's basically game. So if I go Grepher, Necrogardna, well now they have to commit two monsters. When they commit two monsters, that's where this comes in. It's very difficult to have a deck that is able to output a Stardust Dragon plus another monster on top of that that could tie with Grepher. It's almost always an intensive three card, three card or more combo piece to get over a Mirror Force when you have Grepher on the board. It's very difficult. That's why I run Mirror Force here. And I loosely say that not every deck needs Mirror Force because I think a lot of times we're blinded by thinking of the past. And, you know, I kind of line into that to say that I did not main deck Bottomless Trap Hole. A lot of people ask me if I got that from Fraser Smith, and the answer is no. I don't really watch Edison YouTubers anymore, and I don't know if I've watched a Fraser Smith video. It's been a while. I watch the streams like the RC because I love that. But as far as what he thinks, I don't really follow it. But I would say we've probably came to the conclusion of Bottomless isn't always a main deck card. Rather similarly, you know, not only is it not getting rid of problems already on the board, but starting in 2024, I played Forgs. I did that until 2025, give or take the summer of 2025. And then from there, I played Gigavice until essentially earlier this year. With that, I really kind of fell back on never using Bottomless Trap Hole. And I think as a result, my play was better. I never focused on this card that after turn one just is kind of a letdown. And I don't want to say it's a letdown because obviously there's always times where you can just like you're in top decking wars and you hit the bottomless and you set it and then they summon the Sirocco and you bottomless for game. That, you know, that happens a lot. But at the same time, how many times have you lost games because your opponent has the Sirocco on board before you have the bottomless and then you're just sitting there behind a bottomless and they're just hitting, or they summon the Necrogarda, or they summon the Rediary, or whatever. And I realized that, you know, through my playing with Forgs and Gigavice, something like discard traps, or in this case, something like Icarus attack, they just do the same thing, but better. Now, is removing an enemy's Blackwing monster, or just any monster, probably better than not? Absolutely. But I can tell you with 100% certainty, I did not miss the bottomless at all. I didn't even side deck it for this event. I did change one card in the side deck, which was not here, and I'll talk about that here in a second because this was over a week ago, and I realized some of the things that I've already swapped. The ratio, I think, is probably the next thing. The ratio between the three Greffers and one Arma. I know a lot of people want to be on the standard value list of 2/2. I just I Armageddon Knight was kind of underwhelming. I have so much discard fodder. I guess not more than any other deck, but you know, I can also through Black Whirlwind search out values, which definitely happened. I can discard Shuras to turn on a Blizzard play or whatever. I, I don't know. I just found Grepher, and I think most players would agree with me. It's just significantly more impactful. Where an Armageddonite off the top is nice, but this ratio with the one Rhoda, I would say so I went 7-0. I only lost two games the entire day. Both of them were to top decked, not top deck, but brain controls essentially while I was up in card advantage. I would say, so what is that? 7-0, 5-0, so that's 10 games at 5-0 plus six more games for two more rounds. 16 games I played. I would say of the 16 games, at minimum, at minimum, 75%, so at least 12 games, maybe even more, I had one of these cards in my hand turn one every time. And obviously, you summon Grepher. If they don't solemn, then you're winning. But to match the one Armageddon Knight, I did run, you guys saw it was a foolish burial. And it did happen where my opponent just like they knew that they weren't going to be able to get over an Armageddon Knight sending a value place. And this got solemn at one point. And then I just foolish burialed for game. They couldn't out the foolish burial afterwards. So the extension plays it allows, even if you're going a little bit minus on hand resources, being like a pseudo miracle fusion was more than enough reason to play this. I like this ratio. I personally would never change it. At 40 cards, it was phenomenal. In the side deck, the only thing that I changed so far was two Cyber Dragons, which were pulling the rugs. And maybe they should have stayed pulling the rugs. Two DD Crows, one Kaiku, one Gores. Gores wasn't very good. This is going to be another Kaiku once I can actually find my other Kaiku. One Fissure, actually two Fissures, I lied. Two Book of Moon, and then two Oppression, two Dust Tornado, the second DDV. And like I said, these were two pulling the rugs. Maybe they should stay pulling the rugs. I have a bad sample size of only 7 rounds. The pulling the rugs didn't come up at all. I was never worried about a Caius play. I think I played GB's round one and then nothing but Light Sworn and some bird variant for the rest of the day. So pulling the rugs were bad, but maybe there's a time where I'll say, man, I wish I had pulling the rugs when I go up against a bunch of Caius decks. I don't know. Everything here, otherwise, was incredible. Everything came up, everything played exceptionally well. Book of Moon to play around Trapstun in the GB matchup was a real thing. This Book of Moon coming in against Blackwings to turn off Black Whirlwind summons was great. Both of these cards together, just well, I guess all four of them, dominating the Light Sworn / Twilight matchup was great. Dust Tornadoes hitting GB back rows. That came up a couple times. I actually got both of those off in my game. And then this combination, I think Crow is only as good as the other card you have. And I say this because imagine a game scenario. The two decks that you mostly put Crow in against are going to be some Frog variant or a Vayu variant. Obviously, there's zombies, stuff like that, but those are pretty rare, right? Having one Crow typically is not great. How many times does a Vayu player have multiple Vayu pieces and you Crow one and then they can still use the other and then you just went -1? Or they have Burial or they have Return. So two Crows isn't terrible, but one Crow's not very good. Well, now what about the frog player where they have two treeborn frogs? Well, now you have to have both crows. Plus, then they have miracle fusions. Well, now you want three crows. So one crow is just a -1. Two crows is a -2, and then they still have the miracle fusion, and you only got rid of two treeborns. Like it's not a very good trade-off. But where crow shines is if you're able to randomly, if you're able to double DD Crow, two Treeborn Frogs, and then follow up with a Kaiku or Soul Exchange. This was originally supposed to be Soul Exchange, but I couldn't find or Soul Release, pardon me. I couldn't find my Soul Release. So I went with Kaiku, but its Grave Protection also came up a lot. DD Crow is only as good as the cards that are assisting alongside DD Crow. I think is kind of what I've come to conclude, whether it's Soul Release, Kaiku, Book of Life, Rediary, or I don't know, some other type of enemy graveyard control manipulation card. This card could go 3 because, I don't know, my fear of Forgs is probably too much, but I think 2 DD Crow's fine because if you hit 3 of them, it probably doesn't feel good. And then Kaiku was so good against all of my light sworns. Anytime I saw a Vayu, honestly, even in the GB matchup, it could be a possible just like normal summon because it's 1800. My GB side deck right now is roughly 8 cards that I'm siding for, and my siding strategy is not perfect. I'm still working on it. But that was all that stuff. So the pulling the rugs, like I said, they just didn't come up. And maybe there's another event where I just go against Vayu Turbo 7 rounds in a row. And then if I side the pulling the rugs out, I get sad because I just lose to Kai's all day. But ultimately, I did decide on Cyber Dragon. I just think Blackwings in general is too prevalent, and you don't expect your opponent to be siding in oppressions or anything, right? So this is just a card that eats up bottomless, prisons, and then it just lets your Sirocco walk. It lets your Vayu Synchros walk. It lets everything else walk. Or I guess this card walks, so all your other cards can run, I guess. And then Gores. I don't know. If you're not going to main deck Gores, I just had to think, like, what am I siding Gores in against? And it was just like, Vayu was kind of the only thing, but it it's just this weird confliction. I didn't like Gores. I sided it in. It came up in my hand maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the day, but it never actually came up in game. So I guess I'll just lay everything out again because this is what the new list is gonna look like. 2 Crow and then 2 Kaiku. One of these could be a Fossil Dyna if you wanted to. I just don't actually own a Fossil Dyna, to be completely honest, as another consecrated light out. But I figure with 2 Cyber Dragons, um, these 4 spells, the Icarus attack, some amount of DDVs, I and plus the main deck card trooper or synchros or anything, I just don't really see consecrated light being the end of the world for me. But maybe I could lose to it because I didn't play it. Also, shout out to Sasha Egger, who his team, absolute monster team. Sasha Egger, Adam Ulrich, I think his name Ulrich, I think's what it is, and Yiching Lee. I apologize if I butchered those. Drove all the way from North Carolina, like a 9-hour drive, and just played in what honestly ended up being a much more competitive tournament than I think most people were expecting in terms of some of the players who showed up. And Sasha let me borrow his Silverwind. Now this isn't Sasha's. I don't own one of these until Adam gave this to me. But Sasha had to leave, so he had to take his Silverwind, and then I got to use this one from Adam. So Adam and Sasha, both of you, thank you for showing up, and thank you for letting me use slash have the cards. Nothing special here. I think this is just going to be the most standard lineup you've ever seen. I think some people do drop Mistworm in favor of a second Silverwind, like that's kind of been coming up. But with like return plays, Vayus, Blizzards, I don't know, Mistworm seems better than second Silverwind. I don't play enough to know what the difference could be. And then this was originally Magical Android, but now that the Cyber Dragons are in, it's this. Magical Android did actually come up a few times throughout the day, though, to be said. Magical Android is a very powerful card. That card's insane. And my Radiant Jirachi token that I use for Gores. Now, I think that kind of talks about the deck itself. We'll take I'll take a second to go into some of the cards that disappointed me. And by that, I mean there was 2 cards. 1 second, let me side deck away. 2 cards total. Well, I guess technically 3 that were just kind of like eh. And it was these. Now, Armageddon Knight, I would never drop. This card just it's too good. It does too much for you to be like just a normal one summon, Rhoda something. But Plague Spreader. And the only reason I'm keeping Plague is because I'm keeping Armageddon Knight. And this just being like an instant Goyo Brio type play. Plus making Return better. Return was, I don't know, it came up a few times and it just never happened, but it's like a 1 card OTK that you win games you shouldn't win. And then Plague Spreader ultimately it was disappointing. I drew it a lot. I never really sent it too much. It didn't play. I don't think it played a major impact in any of my wins, but I also didn't lose enough to say whether it played a role in my losses. I drew it a lot. It existed. I don't know if I used it a whole lot. The stacking was kind of lame. I don't know. I'm gonna keep it. Nothing's gonna change about my deck list. But if something did change, if I were to make a major change, it would legitimately be like these three for three upstarts. That's the only thing I could possibly think of. But I just think the ceiling is too high with these cards. And then I guess another card is MST. Not to say MST was bad, but this could be a side deck option. Similar reasoning for Mirror Force, where I think we need to start entering a time where you understand why you're playing cards. And the top level players, they already know this, right? I don't think a lot of the players have caught up for reasonings for why you run cards. This, I can't figure out exactly why I main deck it. What am I trying to hit, right? I don't need to hit oppressions. It's just like the occasional Black Whirlwind. But that's kind of what I thought. But there were a couple times where my opponent went first and they would just go, summon monster set one, set two back row. And then I just had to blind MST trying to hit something to make my plays go through. And I guess it's like this weird pseudo heavy storm in those events where they don't have a whole lot of things, but I mean it did well enough and I don't know what I would put in the main deck over it. So I wouldn't drop it. The only thing that could go over any of these cards, I would always main deck this at minimum. But the only thing that could go over them, like I said, is either going to be something to make Black Whirlwind better. So either the third Kalut or a Bora, or upstarts, which again ultimately make Black Whirlwind better and just make the deck more consistent. But these are just like high rolly cards that you just randomly win the game because they exist. This just a one card combo enabler, and then MST is just MST, where it sometimes helps you get plays through, which is pretty important. Going into my matches, I think this is probably going to be the last part of the video. Again, shout out to Team SPO, which includes the past SPO players who couldn't make the event. I played round one against, where is it? Yeah, against my buddy Sean. Him and his team came from Detroit. He's on Gladiator Beast, and this match lasted, I think it was 7 minutes. I think it was 7 minutes. I remember I hit him with a trap dust shoot game one, and then his opening hand was like two Darius, a Rescue Cat, and then three traps. Like it was a good hand, but just because I knew how to play against it, I was able to Mirror Force one Darius, the other one crashed, and then he just couldn't get any monsters after that. So my monsters just walked. Game two, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I was able to one for one all of his monsters, and he could never get anything going. Round two, I played against Nitro Value. It was specifically Nitro Value because I knew he was playing like draw. He ended up playing draw cards and stuff like that. I don't remember who that was though. Uh, but a quick 2-0. Round three against Blackwing, where this is one of the games that he OTK'd me with rain control, and I'd be losing that. Round four, I didn't write notes, but I think round four, yeah, round four was against Lightsworn. So it was against my buddy Noah. Not Lightsworn, but Twilight. And that was the one where Kaiku put in the most work. Kaiku was unbelievable. I was able to Book of Moon one monster, swing over it, and then fissure the Kaiku, and then some, or fissure his Judgment Dragon. So and he ended up milling one earlier, and he had a known monster incarnation hand. But at some point, Kaiku was able to attack, banish both JDs, and then he could no longer monster incarnation the JD, and he never had another play after that. So Kaiku was unbelievable in this matchup. And then round five against a Blackwing player, and this is the other brain control that, I think game two I had him down to, was it 400, it looks like, maybe? And I ended with like Dad and Armor Master on board. Or he was at 59. I was at 400, he was at 59. And I had Dad and Armor Master on board for next game, and he had two cards left in hand. And they were, I think, a Shura and brain control. So he ended up winning that game, but I got him in the end. And then then we went to top eight. So round six, I guess, technically. It was the same Blackwing player, and it was a much faster 2-0. And then I played against a Blackwing player again for the semifinals. And same thing. Same thing. Very fast, very quick 2-0. Now, I will say what is notable about that final round, the Blackwing player in our game one, he did not see a single one of these Um, I don't think he saw any of this stuff in game one or like the Blizzard. I don't think he saw any of these cards in game one. So this was actually an interesting phenomenon. I think this might have happened a couple times. He did not see, well, any of these cards. So there was nothing about my deck that made it seem like I had Blackwing monsters at all. And for some reason, which, I don't know, side strategies, but he sided in Royal Oppressions, two of them actually. Now, he doesn't know this, but in our game two, I actually sided out my Blizzard, and I might have sided out something else. I think I sided out Plague. These came out a lot. So outside of Gale, I think I legitimately took out well, and Dad, right? I took out every single special summon option that my deck has. I might have taken out Return too. So I might have taken out those three cards. Because if I took out Plague, I usually took out Return along with it. But he didn't see this stuff. So these were the only two cards I had left in my deck that could special summon at all. It got to a point where he flipped the oppression, and I just got him to where but he didn't side his stuff out. So he flipped oppression, and then he had a Blizzard in his hand that he couldn't play because of his own oppression, and I just won. So I don't know if that's like one. I don't think that is correct to side that in the first place, but it was just interesting to know that people don't generally see like these six cards, right? There's nothing about this deck, or I guess even Icarus attack, right? But there's nothing about this deck that leans it to be right, Blackwing inspired at all, outside of just like standard value. So that was an interesting phenomenon to be like, oh, you didn't see these cards, therefore you cited as if it were just regular value. So then when I summon my Shura, I just easily walked over whatever month, like your Bora or whatever it was that he left on board, because he just wanted the Bora to play against a Greffer, but he wasn't expecting a Shura to hit over the Bora to go and make huge plays after that. So that was interesting, and I think that's something to I don't think that would happen too often, but maybe something to lean on. But anyways, again, shout out to everyone who was there. Shout out TDD. Shout out to the team. I don't think this was a groundbreaking deck list, but I will be on this deck for quite some time. Thank you very much for watching. You guys have a wonderful day and goodbye.